we're going to do a front number plate off of a Suzuki, which really is the same thing as doing a side number plate. Some side number plates, especially on the late 80s bikes, do start to get into some curves. You can refer to the steel tank installation guide video if you have a side cover that has a compound curve or is much more difficult than this simple application. A lot of the tips and suggestions in that video will apply to that type of side cover graphic installation. First thing we're going to do is go over some of the tools we're going to need. I have a heat gun here. You may or may not need a heat gun. I really don't think you will, as long as it's a simple flat application. If you start getting into compound curves on some of the other side covers, you may need a heat gun. I've got application fluid. If you don't have application fluid for graphics, you can just use a clean, sterile bottle with no Windex in it previously, filled with water and a few drops of dish detergent. That'll work just fine. I've got a prep solution, which is 91% isopropyl alcohol. You can get that pretty much anywhere. And I've got a clean rag and a fresh blade. You can use an X-Acto knife, but I'm using a razor blade in this example because I'm assuming that's what most people would actually be using. So let's start it off. I'm going to move these tools out of the way so you can see what I'm doing here. I'll get our Suzuki number plate in place. As you can see, it's pretty old, it's pretty beat up. If you regular vintage racer, you're probably driving it all the time, you don't have the best plastics on there, that's fine. These graphics will still stick. What I've done is I've taken my alcohol and I've put in a little bit on a rag. Now if you have old decals or adhesive on the number plate left over from your previous graphic, that all needs to be removed. I do suggest using a product called Gooby Gone. It will work well. You can use xylene. That's also another product that works well to take away residual graphics. However, this one doesn't really have much in the way of any old graphic on it anymore, so the isopropyl alcohol does the sterilization process. If you do use Gooby Gone or any other product to clean the residual dirt and grime and grease graphics off of your number plate, you must use alcohol to finish it off to get rid of the oil-based product. That's a must. You can't get away without it. I'm going to move this out of the way now. I'm going to show you what the product will look like. Most likely, we do have hundreds of products, so when you get your graphics, can't guarantee it's going to look exactly like this, but it should be close. Here's the number plate for the number plate graphic for the number plate. You can see what we've done is we've folded the release or the transfer tape on the back behind it to help it in the transport to your home. When you get it, what you want to do is cut the best that you can all the way around the graphic. You also want to cut this hole out here and the small holes here. You can. What I've done is I actually put like an X pattern in each small hole instead of trying to cut such a small hole out. So to save time, I've got an example here of what it looks like when it's cut out. And as you can see, I've gone around this part of the hole and the perimeter of the graphic. The next thing I want to do is line up the graphic on the cover. Make sure that it fits well. I'm eyeing it up, noticing any problems that might occur in the middle of the application. I don't see anything. Most of these, I should say all of these, are pre-cut exact to whatever pattern we use. Can't guarantee that some of your number plates or side covers are so old that they've warped in the sun. It could make a difference. I mean, you're dealing with really old parts here, so you may need to trim it somewhere. However, we use the best parts we can to make our patterns, and when they leave here, they have been tested and retested for fit. The next thing you want to do, again, we've cleaned the area, got sterile hands. That's a big thing, is having sterile hands, so you don't get dirt on the back of the graphic. You want to separate the graphic and the transfer tape from the backing paper. And what you want to do is you want to actually lay it in a sterile area. So I'm going to move this to the side. I'm going to grab my razor blade and I'm going to try and lift the graphic off here. As you can see, it's coming off. I'm going to use the razor blade because it's probably more sterile than my oily hands, and I'm going to hold the edge down as I pull it back. So I've got a sterile environment, sterile graphic, and I'm going to spray it with your soapy mixture liberally, or your Rapid Tack installation fluid, which is what I'm using. I'm going to bring the side cover back, and I'm going to spray the side cover, or front number plate in this case, with the Rapid Tack, or in your case it may be soapy solution. Now that it's wet, you can put it on, get it kind of where you want it. It should not stick so long as you have enough soap and water. I kind of like that position right there. You know, this takes some experimentation. Don't go with the first thing, you know, the first attempt at throwing it on. I can see where my holes are lining up perfectly in these two areas. I know it's hard to see on the film. The next step would be to grab your squeegee, which I actually did not include in the tool collection in the beginning. That's okay. Grab your squeegee, and you want to start from the middle, and you want to work your way out just to get the graphic set. As soon as that soapy water mixture is moved from the out from underneath the graphic and the plastic, it will contact and it will stick. The next thing you want to do is take your soapy water or application fluid Rapid Tack, which is what I'm using, and you want to spray it onto the release liner and let it sit for a couple minutes here. Rub it in with your hands, and you'll notice that it'll start to change color. Because it's really, what that does is it breaks down the adhesive compound between the transfer paper and the graphic itself. And now you can come back and kind of work this in more with your squeegee, like so. Some areas you may have trouble getting to stay down, especially if you have an old side cover or number plate and the plastic is pitted or it's got scratches in it. The water may get trapped in those scratches. If that's the case, the graphic may want to lift up when you're trying to take the transfer paper off. It's not a big deal. What you want to do is just try to keep the graphic down, and over time, within a week, if it just sits in the house, or even if you put it out in the sun, it would happen quicker. The soapy water behind the graphic will actually evaporate and it will stick just fine. So at this point, I'm going to try and get rid of some of the excess water around the edges. I'm going to test my R-tape to see how well it's starting to release here with the mixture. You can see it's just actually pulling. It's actually pulling right back. Again, you can see that this is an old cover and it's having trouble staying down there, which is good. I wanted to actually show this because you're all probably going to have this same situation. So you need some more squeegee time to get the soapy mixture out from behind. You can see that the tape is now really starting to come off from the graphic, which is good. It's going to make the removal much easier. Don't expect the graphic to actually stick 100% to the number plate, especially if the number plate's old, because it's almost impossible to get the water out with the squeegee alone. Pulling at a direct 180-degree parallel angle. Don't pull up, pull sideways.